Let the fun begin. Creativity is key. Mrs. Mitchell has done a great job at making us reach for the stars and be creative. I have always been bland and boring at writing or anything else, but she showed us and pushed us to not always go for that average Joe stuff. I now have that extra pizzazz I've always strived for, and I thank her for that. Reading is good for the soul. I have always thought reading was for nerds, but Mrs. Mitchell showed us it could be fun. When we read Define Normal, Anthem, and Speak together, she turned the boring reading into an adventure. She made it fun for us, and she let us get involved by letting us read for certain characters. I used to never read before, but Mrs. Mitchell turned me into a reading fool. I hate to say it, but I had a horrible language arts teacher last year. She always made us write essays, and she never shut up about comma placement. I always asked my mom if I could switch out of her class, but she said all the English teachers would be like this for the rest of my school years. Well, this year, Mrs. Mitchell proved her wrong. She improved our writing by giving us the chance to write for 10 minutes at the beginning of each class period, and at the end of each semester, she would critique us on one of our pieces and give us a goal to reach for the next semester. Mrs. Mitchell's a one-of-a-kind teacher, and I'm happy she taught me language arts doesn't have to be all about the commas. It's good to share your writing. I have always been very shy when it comes to my writing. I would never want anybody to read it, but Mrs. Mitchell showed me to let go. Every day we have to write for 10 minutes and share some of it with your partner. This should show me to take the criticism and learn from it. We are on Mrs. Mitchell time, folks. I have learned in Mrs. Mitchell's class to never look back at the clock because we are on Mrs. Mitchell time. It is now a habit for me to never worry about what time it is in my classes and just go with when the bell rings. The Mrs. Mitchell time clock has shown me not to be impatient and to go with the flow. Tests don't have to be testy. This year in Mrs. Mitchell's class, we learned not all tests are boring multiple choice. We either take an easy AR test in the lab or we have a fun bag test in the room. These special tests have taught me that tests can be fun. Express yourself. Mrs. Mitchell taught me how to express my feelings on paper. For example, my first portfolio piece was about a dog at the beach. My second portfolio piece was about boys. My third portfolio piece got a little deeper with me talking about my insanity. And my final piece went deep into the ocean blue when I wrote about how dreams never come true. My writing has went from sounding like a 5-year-old wrote it to my final piece actually sounding like the 14-year-old girl I am was trying to crawl out of the paper. I've learned from Mrs. Mitchell that expressing your true feelings is needed if you plan on writing anything that somebody can actually relate to. And this is just the beginning.